I am so excited today. We're making one of my favorite dishes, gumbo. Gumbo is a local favorite, and it's I guess I would say it's almost a worldwide favorite, and Louisiana is known for its gumbo. But since having the food allergies to dairy, soy, eggs, and wheat, as well as being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, I hadn't been able to enjoy gumbo like I used to. So I had to figure out a way that I can enjoy gumbo and still be able to feel great afterwards. So there are a few tweaks to this recipe that's unlike many of the recipes that you probably have had. It is shellfish free. That's right, a gumbo without crabs, without shrimp. I know it sounds like it's ludicrous, but it is totally true. Because gumbo, really, when you think about the history of it, gumbo is like a soup. And gumbo, to many people in Louisiana, is a different twist no matter where you go. My friend Kim, who's over here helping me in the kitchen, in her part of Louisiana, they maybe put gizzards in their gumbo. And in our part of Louisiana, we put actually wieners in our gumbo. So today we're going to do a whole twist where I'm leaving out the shellfish altogether, but I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to show you how to make this gumbo still give you that seafood flavor with a lot of spice as well, but not using the shellfish. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to do it with fish. That's right, fish. I know my mother thought I was crazy when I told her I was going to use fish. So we're going to use a fillet of fish called cod. As you see, it's very white. But the thing about it, when I stumbled on it, because I say I stumbled on it because in Louisiana we don't eat cod, we eat catfish, right? So in this, when I got this fish, it started, as I cooked it, it started flaking just like crab. It looked like crab meat, and I was like, wait a minute, this looks like crabs, it smells like crab. Oh, this is going to make a good gumbo. So that's how it came to be, of having a shellfish-free gumbo. The other twist to this recipe is no tomatoes. That's right, no tomatoes, which is another thing you do not do. You always have tomatoes in your gumbo, whether it's in tomato paste or tomato sauce. You have some form in the gumbo. So what I did instead is I put a twist on that. I play with beets, fresh beets, and so to give the red color. And you'll start to see that as we start to get into this gumbo. The one other key thing that many people hear about is the whole roux thing. Well, if you're gluten-free, you can't have roux, because roux is basically flour and water. It's making a gravy, a thickener. And so I've created the combination and the balance to get this thickness by using a nice ratio of okra to gumbo filet. That's right, and that's this powder substance here. It's called gumbo filet. I know it sounds weird, and you can find it in a lot of ethnic grocery stores. In Louisiana, you can find it everywhere. But in the places like in Phoenix, I go to certain grocery stores to find this spice. And it's basically ground sassafras leaves. Now I'm getting ready to add all of the ingredients to the pot. I've chopped the green onions. I have the celery. And just follow the recipe on 39 and you'll get all the measurements, but I'm just dumping real quickly. And another thing to note is, it seems like it's a lot, and that's because I'm making this recipe for a group of friends of mine who are gluten-free. So that's why you see twice as much as what the recipe calls for on page 39. So we have okra, we have the onions, and now we're going to add our salt as well to the pot. Your garlic powder, your onion powder, your crushed red pepper, getting the spice in there, and then you're going to add white pepper as well. And I'm going to mix this around, and then I'm going to take it to the stove and allow it to come to a boil so that the okra and the onions can start to melt together, and then they start to cook down. So now that I have the pot on the stove boiling with the seasoning, notice that I did not add the filet yet. I'm going to wait to add the filet once the mixture comes to a boil, because when you add it too soon, sometimes it just clumps up and it gets really thick, and you're going to have big balls and you have to try to chop it out. So you're going to add this once the mixture comes to the boil, and then you're going to drop in your beet. You're going to drop that in until it gets to the color that you're looking to achieve. So while we're waiting on that to boil, we're going to move into the meat component. So this is where it starts to deviate, from the base of the gumbo. So for me, I don't eat chicken, I don't eat turkey, but I do eat fish. So for me, I go straight to the cod and I start the chopping of the cod, so to get my seafood flavor. Kim, my friend over here, is chopping up the chicken because she likes to have a little more meat than just the seafood part. So she's chopping boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and she's removing some of the excess fat from that. And then we're going to move into the slicing of our sausage. So when you do the fish, you want to make sure you have a nice thick piece, because if fish is so delicate and flaky, it'll just fall apart in the water. So you want to just make sure that it's somewhat still frozen as well. If you didn't have it frozen and decided to go with fresh, put it in the freezer for a little bit so it's thick and easier to cut into chunks. Again, gumbo is about having fun, and it's about doing whatever your taste buds desire. But if you stick with the baseline what we have earlier, you'll be good to go, and then just throw in whatever is your meat of choice. And on those days that you feel like doing the whole vegan thing, just skip the meat and you'll be good to go, and then just substitute in some hearty vegetables of your choice. I don't do soy, as you know, but feel free to substitute with tofu. That'll work too, because the tofu actually picks up the flavors of anything that it mixes with. So you'll be fine, but you'll get that texture. So because in this particular recipe we're going to do a mix of different types of meat, you don't want to add them in at the same time. You have different points at which you're going to add the meat. So because the chicken is going to need more time to cook, you're going to add that right after you add your gumbo filet. You're going to add in your chicken so that it can cook longer. And then you're going to go into your sausage. And then your final stage, right at the end, when you're about to close it all out, you only have about 5 minutes left, you're going to drop in your fish, and that's all that's required, is just a little bit, because from that heat it's going to really cook down very nicely, and then it's going to continue to cook once you turn off the heat and the gumbo is done. Okay, we've put all of the ingredients into this big stock pot. Now keep in mind, you have to have a large pot to cook this in, because it's going to yield about 10 quarts of gumbo. And so I've added the chicken, the sausage, the fish, the cod, and the one thing that I want you to notice here, the color. This is the color that you're trying to achieve. It looks, kind of dirty, but not too dark, not too red. It depends on what part of Louisiana you're from, will determine how you would have the color. Some like it, dirty brown, some like it with a little redness, so they'll add tomato paste. Also, we've added the beet. This is a whole peeled beet that we added to the gumbo to give it the color. So I left it in a little bit because I wanted that middle ground type of color. It's not adding any flavor to it. The other thing to notice in the gumbo that you'll see, because this one is more kind of like the okra gumbo style, you're going to see little beads rise to the top. Those are the seeds from the okra. So don't get alarmed. When you stir in the pot, you'll get all the goodness, as you see here. And the okra was added to complement the gumbo filet, to give it the thickness of the consistency. And so the longer the gumbo sets, the more flavor comes out of all of the seasoning, as well as the chicken sausage and so on. So if you didn't have those meats and you just had the fish, you would have to literally let your beet sit in the gumbo longer to achieve the color, because otherwise it's going to look green like vegetables, because that's all you have. You just have the fish and the okra and the scallions and things like that. So just play with it, have fun. Just start with the baseline that's in the cookbook, and if you want it thicker, reduce the water. If you want it thinner, just add more water. Just have fun with it. You can't mess it up. So it's just that easy.